Okay, Madam Chair, you can start the meeting.
Thank you. Hello and welcome to our council meeting on Monday, March 11th. I'm Councillor Jennifer Miller and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. We have regrets tonight from Mayor Panko and Councillor Brennan, and best wishes to everybody for a March break. Please pause and reflect as I read the land acknowledgement. On March 11th, 2024, we acknowledge that this sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might meet here today. We are also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all of our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, while being mindful of generations to come. So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. And we have a motion that the March 11th Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be approved as circulated, moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor McKenna. All in favor? That's carried, thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and or conflicts of interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, we have a motion that the minutes of the February 12th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting be approved as circulated, moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor McGuire. All in favor? That's carried, thank you. We have a special guest this evening, Pat Evans, who comes to share some information about Parkinson's Awareness Month. Welcome, Pat. Thank you.
Okay. I'm disappointed Mayor Panko is not here tonight because he's been such a wonderful supporter over the years, but that may allows him to have an excuse to not be here, since he doesn't have to hear what I'm going to say. And welcome back. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you about Parkinson's disease. I've appeared a few times in front of members here before, and certainly I've spoken to Sean many times, and he has been very supportive. For those who do not have a connection with Parkinson's, I understand why you may not recognize the relevance for you or your constituency. I hope, however, that my comments today might help you understand why you may want to know more. When I first was thinking about what to say today, I was, of course, going to talk about my request for you to declare, make a proclamation that April is Parkinson's Awareness Month, and also to consider lighting a building or a public space in blue, which is being done around the world to mark April as Parkinson's Awareness Day. I was going to cite statistics about the unprecedented rate of growth in Parkinson's, and I just want to quickly show you this. So this is around the world. This is 2015. This is 2040. So it's going from 6.3 million to 12.9 million. So that's quite the jump. And that's what's been happening throughout history, actually. Because it's doubling every 10 years. It's doubled since I was diagnosed in 2006. So I've had it for 18 years. And I'm doing very well, so I'm very fortunate, by the way. Or I could have talked to you about the incidence of PD being concentrated in rural areas and its links to pesticides and farming. Or I could talk to you about how exercise is viewed as a treatment now, where it wasn't when I was diagnosed, or all of the hidden symptoms like depression and acting out your dreams. There's so many of them that most people don't know. I was actually going to ask you too if you might do squats with me, and I did talk to Peter about this, because that was going to be something, again, that was taking place to help encourage the idea of exercise. But then I went to my last support group, which I facilitate. And in the last 4 months, the story has been the same. People who have never attended a meeting before came to speak about the difficulty of getting a diagnosis, despite the fact that they believe they had Parkinson's, aging care partners under extreme stress, misdiagnosis, and long wait lists. It hit me like a ton of bricks. What I've been saying for years was actually true. I was wondering if I was kind of Peter and the Wolf, crying wolf. We were beginning to see the beginning of a tsunami that had long been predicted. So if I were you, I might be thinking, what does this have to do with me as a municipal councillor? The province holds the healthcare purse strings. It is clear the ball rests firmly in the province's court, and I should be talking to John Jordan instead, but I actually have talked to John Jordan. But we all know that municipal governments are closer to the people and that you get left with the fallout. Certainly without appropriate care, there will be more and more people ending up waiting for a nursing home, people who end up in the hospital, and this, of course, is the more expensive route. I want to just go off my notes for a minute and tell you about a guy whose wife actually gave me permission to use his name at one point. His name is Cliff. Cliff, he was the main reason I started the boxing program. I had him in mind because I thought Smith Falls is and surrounding areas kind of macho. You know, boxing will. And when I first was introduced to boxing, I thought boxing, oh, boxing. But I ended up starting the program, and Cliff was a regular attender. And then Cliff began to go downhill. Cliff did not have the support that he needed. He needed what I'm going to go on to describe now. Certainly without, I need your help to communicate this message and to help me make it happen. To save money and improve quality of life, what people with Parkinson's need is a holistic approach. A multidisciplinary team comprised of people with specialized Parkinson's training, including, but not limited to, physiotherapy, social work, speech and language, dietitian, pharmacy, exercise specialists, and respite for their aging partners. Neurological consultation would mostly be through telemedicine, depending upon the complexity of the case. Now, I'm not a big math or numbers person, but I suspect we would save money. And even if I was wrong for the startup costs, guess what? We have incredible community support. Over the 6 years that I did the Super Walk, we raised over $300,000. The first time John Fennick said to me, Pat, you'll be lucky if you raise $5,000. We raised $32,000 the first time we did it. We've now started our own agency, our own nonprofit. Well, it's not a nonprofit yet, but it's an unincorporated organization called the Parkinson's Community Network, because we were given a $10,000 donation and said, I don't want to give it to Parkinson's Canada because most of it's going to leave the area, so we want to give it to you. So we had to start an organization. And we've now raised $31,000 just last year. We're having a fundraising event on April 20th. We've already sold we've sold more than half the tickets, and we have hardly even advertised. So it shows you the kind of support that we have. So what comes to my mind is a hub, and we've heard about a hub in Smith Falls. And I've certainly talked to Michelle Bellers about this, and certainly the initiative is an excellent start for what I think could be a neurological center of excellence. So we deal with people with Alzheimer's. We deal with people with other kinds of neurological issues, although I'm quite convinced the majority would be Parkinson's. So I'm hoping that you might help me to kind of get more encouraged about that and try to move that process forward. Because it's a slow pace, and we're going to hit a crisis point before we actually get that started if we don't kind of get a move on. We have money for training. This year we're going to give some of the money we've raised towards respite, but we have money to help pay for training. And there is free training. I just tried to find a speech and language pathologist because I knew there was free training money, and I couldn't find anybody. So it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of will. So that's why I'm here today, and I hope you pass the proclamation and turn your town as blue as you can.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I'll turn to my colleagues to see if anyone has any questions or comments. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks so much, Pat, to see you again. We do talk on the phone more than we see each other. I know that council will support the recommendation or the proclamation, and I know the mayor will speak eloquently about it as he always does. So I can't promise the blue, but
Well, I understand the blue is going to be a band shell. That was
I just don't know what shade of blue.
Yeah, what shade? I don't care what shade of blue.
Yeah. All right, sky blue. And best wishes with your fundraiser. And could you just give me a little more details on that?
I could even do better than that.
Sell me a
I
ticket.
can put this on the record.
Okay. We do have a calendar of events on our website. We're probably to get that posted.
Obviously, publicity is the most important thing in terms of awareness. So anything you can do to publicize it would be much appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn, you had a question?
Pat, thank you. You're very passionate about this. You've got all kinds of energy, and that's just wonderful. So you know what? I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking, this lady's going to accomplish much. Thank you for being so passionate, and thank you for making us aware. You know, Parkinson, yes, I've heard of it, but I'm not really sure what it's all about and what you can do. And you're talking about how you can keep people healthy, keep them active. Yeah, what, just fantastic. So,
And I want to introduce Shirley, who came with me tonight to support me. And thank you, Shirley, for coming.
We have one more question, if you don't mind, Councillor McGuire.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, Pat. I think in the 10 years since we've met, you've really expanded my understanding of Parkinson's, and it's just been so inspiring to see everything that you guys have organized and fundraised, and I hope that momentum keeps going. So the proclamation will be, I think, an easy sell for us. My question is on the Meatball Madness and karaoke. Is the karaoke mandatory, or is it?
Absolutely, for you.
Okay. I'm on the fence then. I don't know. I hope to join you on
That would be great.
April 20th.
That would be great.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank
so
you.
we'll leave the proclamation with our clerk, who will arrange that. For
Now, we
next
were
week.
hoping to have a photo, but I guess I don't know with Sean, but since he's not here tonight, what would you suggest about?
I think we could do that at the end of the meeting, or if you wanted Sean, he'll be back on Monday.
Okay, so we can do that maybe. It might be easier, I think, right? Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Okay, moving on, we have got 2 directors' reports, so I'll pass that over to Ms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so first, the first one we have is with Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you. My single report tonight is a very quick report. We have been in contact with a municipality regarding dispatch services. The municipality has contacted me, and they are interested in sole sourcing to the town of Smith Falls for dispatching services. We have 3 questions that they require us to answer or clarify within the draft document. Pretty straightforward, simple questions that have been answered within a very few short minutes. So we plan on submitting those answers back to them tomorrow morning. And we fully anticipate that they'll take that to their council, and then I will be bringing a report to this council to go ahead and proceed with a 5-year agreement for dispatching services.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Councillor Quinn?
just, this is wonderful. Dispatch is just growing. It's growing, and that's fantastic. And I know you'll keep us up to date on how this is going forward and how your staffing is, you know, being able to handle all this if there's issues, whatever. So look forward to any more reports that you have coming forward. This is fantastic news.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent.
Go ahead.
Okay. So my report this evening is fairly high level information about the solar eclipse that's due to happen on April 8th. So we've been plugged in, so to speak, with some of the work that's going on. There's a provincial solar eclipse working group. I think it's through the Emergency Management Ontario that are doing some work. They hope to meet on the 28th of March and release advice on what they see as any emergent considerations with the eclipse. So we'll find out what they come up with and obviously share that with council and the public. As well, in a parallel fashion, the health unit has developed an eclipse task force. So they're looking at it from a health perspective, of course. And also EMO, Emergency Management Ontario, have developed a toolkit. So there's lots of work going on. We don't really need to reinvent that. We're waiting to get information from all of those groups doing very good work, and we'll bring that back probably in a verbal report later this month, certainly before the 8th, and provide advice. I don't think there's a large role for municipalities. I know some are encouraging people to come out. City of Brockville, for instance, are having an event at the Aquatarium during that afternoon. Again, an Aquaways planning something as well. As I understand it, I'm not an expert, but we're not necessarily in the path of totality, as they call it. We might be just on the edge of it. Partial totality, maybe. I'm not sure what it's called. But anyway, we're trying to understand what that means from a health risk point of view. So once we get the information, we'll share it and share it with the citizens of Smiths Falls so that people can take precautions as necessary. So more to come.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, moving along, and that's it for reports.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have no committee of the whole consent reports and no need for an in-camera session tonight. So we are going to start with our priority issues. And we have Director McMunn with our first one on Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund Grant Opportunity, the longest title ever.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. That's quite a handle for sure. So as Madam Chair mentioned, the report I have in front of you this evening is to seek Council's direction to apply for a grant that's administered through the province of Ontario, and it's called the Housing Enabling Water Systems Program. This program, we received notification from the province back on the 29th of January announcing the program via email. This funds will make available $200 million over a 3-year period, targeting critical water projects to help unlock more housing within the province. And as we know, the government has an interest in building 1.5 million homes in Ontario by 2031. So it's an application-based project, meaning that we're in competition with other municipalities to secure funding for this project. Albeit, we do believe that the trunk water main project that's associated with the larger project, being the water tower project, really aligns well with the criteria for this project. As we know, we've got a trunk water main that we need to install, and recently our council has directed staff to go ahead and look at this as a reconstruction project, full reconstruction being sewer separation, so separating our storm sewer from our sanitary sewer. So that checks the box in terms of what the government's trying to do with this particular fund, as well as we're going to increase our serviceability to the water tower with the new 16-inch water main that we're looking at installing, connecting on Chambers Street, then making its way over to the water tower site on Aircare Drive. I should note that you might ask why we can't apply for both of them. I mean, there's $35 million that can be applied for from each municipality. So why are we not applying for the water tower project? We can't apply for the water tower project because we've already secured provincial funding via the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. That's the ICIP Green Stream that we were previously awarded about $3.6 million for that project. And 1.6 million of that was provided through the province. So the water tower project proper is not eligible for funding through this provincial grant. Albeit, we still have a really good chance at securing I wouldn't say all of the different elements that we have with this project. We know there's going to be some ineligibility of this project, i.e. maybe some of the surface works. But as I understand it, much of the underground upgrade reconstruction work that we need to do has potential to be funded. Again, we're competing against other municipalities. There's $200 million and each project can be awarded up to a total of $35 million per project. So how far that goes has yet to be seen. So I'm seeking direction from council this evening to apply for the grant. The deadline is midnight on April 19th, 2024, so pretty tight turnaround. So with that, if I get council endorsement or committee endorsement here this evening, I'll start to fashion the grant and put it together and make it ready for submission on the 19th of April.
Thank you so much, and thanks for bringing this forward. I know we're going to be appreciative of all the help we can get. It's so expensive. Councillor Robinson, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's not a question. Go ahead and do it. We need all the help we can get with this. And from what I read, it really sounds to me like it aligns with basically everything. You're ticking all the boxes. So I'm going to support it.
Seeing thumbs up, I think you have your direction.
Great.
Good luck. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much.
Moving on to Director Dauber. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Council. I'm sure that this council's probably seen these reports before. This is a yearly requirement under the Municipal Act to make available to the public all the costs associated with council. This is just following along on that process as per last year and will continue on into the future. I know that there had been some information supplied to council, and we didn't receive any too much communication, a little bit, and I just wanted to open it up tonight. If council had any questions about it, I'd be happy to take it.
Thank you. Any questions? Pretty straightforward stuff, so
Yeah.
it looks like you have your approval. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda has been put here by Councillor Quinn, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. This is discussing parking and the length of free parking in the downtown, particularly the downtown area. It came to my attention on February the 7th when I attended the AGM for our Downtown Business Association, and the parking issue was brought up at that time. So we're feeling that there isn't enough free parking for people, enough time of free parking for people. We have 2 hours. There's many places that you could spend 2 hours and then you have to move your vehicle. So we've had some discussion about possibly, extending it to 3 hours, but I need guidelines. I need staff guiding us and telling us how this can happen. On February the 2nd, one of my clients, a hair client, came in, had her hair done, and that was almost a 2-hour process, which can definitely happen. After she left my salon, then she went into Full Figure Boutique, did a little bit of shopping. By the time she got out of there, she was over the 2 hours and she got a ticket. She wasn't quite sure why she got the ticket, but I explained to her how the situation went. And I said, you know what, this is maybe time for us to start to think about how we can change, how we can make this better for people to be shopping and dining downtown. Another instance that came up was February the 17th, when I attended the Chinese New Year. And this happened from 5:30 in the evening till 9:30, and people at that particular event were concerned about if they stayed parked longer than 2 hours, were they going to get a ticket? So there's a lot of unknowns here. I think we need to be educating people better. Anyway, I took it upon myself that night to say, no, you'll be fine. You're fine parked where you are. You won't be getting a ticket. And I was hoping all the time I was saying that they wouldn't get a ticket. So are we driving shoppers away? Do we need to be more inviting downtown? Let's think about what we can do. How about 3 hours of free parking on the side street? This is just my suggestion. Leave Beckwith Street at 2 hours and the side streets become 3 hours. And then you would have to move into a free zone, I guess, in order to stay longer if that's what you were wanting to do. But there's lots of people that spend definitely longer than 2 hours downtown. One of the other things that I'm feeling is we don't have enough proper signage. We have signage out there that is outdated. And whatever we decide to do, I think should be put into stores. Maybe a nice little laminated sign that can be in a store so that the business owners can tell people how long they do have to be parked. I am not saying that bylaw are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They certainly are. And we need bylaw there. We need to be monitoring the parking on the streets because we know we've had many issues with residents, people that work downtown, business people, and they'll park downtown in the parking spots all day. So we do have to have it monitored. We do have to have some control. What I have here is I have had two pieces of information given to me. This one is the manager of the Lighthouse Cafe, and she took the time and wrote me a lovely letter about her feelings about inadequate parking, but definitely about the amount of time that's allotted. So if you go in to a restaurant, you have lunch, you come out, you decide you want to shop a little bit, you can certainly be over the 2 hours. She was very, very gracious. She just was hoping that we could come up with a solution where we could help small businesses. And we all know small businesses do struggle. The other piece of information I received was from Sherry Axford. And Sherry is the chair of the Events and Promotions Committee for the Downtown Business Association. And she has the same concerns. And saying also, you know, this is a big problem and we don't want to make it easy for the people downtown that were taking up parking spots. We don't want to make it easy for them to continue to do that. My business being on Russell Street, I will tell you that we did have a few people live close by. One man painted his car in a parking spot on Russell Street. He changed his brakes. He did an oil change. I mean, there's many funny things go on. And bylaw were wonderful. They came out and they tried to move him along. So there are issues. So we have to look at both sides of this picture. We have to make sure what we're doing is right for the businesses, and we have to protect them, and we have to move people along that shouldn't be parked there all day long. So I am looking for advice. I have spoken with Chief Cheeseborough about this and about maybe how, and I've also spoken with bylaw. So I'm looking for information. I'm looking for some ideas. I'm looking for how can we solve this problem. And I'm not sure if the chief has some information you'd like to pass on tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. I think I'll start by opening it up for questions around the horseshoe, if you don't mind, and then we can go
Okay.
from there with staff. Councillor McGuire had his hand up, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Councillor Quinn, for bringing this for us tonight. I know for me, one thing that I always seem to get a lot of complaints on is with the 2-hour parking. If you move your car around the block, you can still get a ticket if you're in the downtown for more than 2 hours, which I think is also not great, because you could be shopping at different businesses and moving the car. And the whole reason for that 2-hour limit was that thered be a rotation at the spots. I'm a little bit nervous, though, to dig back into a full overhaul, because I remember when we had this conversation a couple of years ago, I want to say kind of near the end of the last term, the DBA, a lot of people from the DBA came and said, we don't want 3-hour parking because we're worried people are going to park in front of our stores. So I think at this term or this phase for me, I think the DBA needs to do, if this is something that they want to bring and want to change policy on, it's something that they need to do a thorough consultation internally, because I remember several businesses, you have business on one side of Russell Street that wants 3 hours and one on the other side that wants 15-minute. And I don't know that that's something that we're going to be able to hash out up here. And I think they need to kind of come to terms with what they want. And if they want to change and pass that through their governance structure and then bring it to us. But definitely, I think there could be opportunities for the 2-hour improvement, especially with not counting it per spot, not counting it if you move around the block,
Thank you. And that was one of the reasons that Sherry Axford reached out, because she is a DBA member, and so she reached out with her concerns, and it has been talked at the DBA. And maybe there's something else we can do. Maybe there's like a ticketing method we can put in, so somebody could buy a ticket that would extend their stay. I have this really open for, let's get ideas flowing here.
Thanks, Councillor Quinn. And so what I'm hearing from you is we need to review the policy. We need to look at our signage and our communication. I am the council rep on the DBA, and we haven't had a formal conversation at a DBA meeting, so I think that really needs to happen. So I'm wondering how council feels about directing staff to do some research on this and coming back with a staff report. Councillor McGuire?
Thanks, Madam Chair. At this time, I wouldn't be comfortable putting it back to staff just because we've had so many studies and reports over the last, maybe we could recirculate the previous information on the topic. But unless there's new information that comes formally from the DBA, in my opinion, I'd say we've debated this a lot. I don't know that there's going to be any low-hanging fruit. So if the DBA wants to discuss it, put on the agenda and send some correspondence, I think that would be the best way forward.
And I can bring that forward to them tomorrow night. Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor McGuire. I'm glad people reach out, but 2 letters don't give me enough information to direct staff to do anything. At the DBA, I agree with you. If they bring forward something formal, there is a process to do that, and I'd be happy to look at it then if it reaches us from that point of view.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, anything you want to add?
No, I'm kind of comfortable with the way this is going. Let's put this in the hands of the DBA to come up with what it is that they're actually looking for, and then bring it back to us so that we can take a look at it. And any suggestions, as Councillor Quinn said, if people could even buy a ticket, which would they could put on their dash, which would extend it by an hour. The town's actually making money on that, and it's not going to cost a lot, but we need to think outside the box a little bit. So I'd be happy with putting it in the DBA's hands.
Looks like we have consensus to go forward to the DBA, so I will ask them to add that to your agenda tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Quinn. Okay, moving on to 10.4 priority issues. We have Director Clark to talk about the old water treatment plan.
Good evening. So as we're all aware, the events of May 8th, 2023 kicked off a series of unfortunate decisions that I think we now have to make. So before you, we have the long-awaited report seeking action on 25 Old Mill property. So I just want to extend my appreciation for your patience as we worked through this particularly challenging, extra complicated, nuanced file. In order to bring you the most pertinent, accurate information, we really wanted to make sure that we had as much information as possible and were able to root out all the options and the opportunities. And so what you have before you is a representation of that. So essentially there are 2 avenues. The first is to have our insurance company manage the claim to the letter of the policy. And the second is to attempt to negotiate with our insurance company an out-of-scope payment in order for the town to self-manage how this rolls out. The options presented have been thoroughly explored with a number of different questions posed in a number of different manners to a number of different individuals, from our insurance broker to a collective around the senior management table to our insurance company as well. And we believe that the option 1, the full demolition of the facility, removes the risk from the town and provides, unfortunately, the best option. So what we are asking of you tonight is to examine your appetite for risk. And while I know this is an emotional decision for a lot of folks, we must balance that risk that we entertain as we make decisions of this magnitude. So I'd welcome any questions, but again, the recommendation on the table is to direct staff to advance a claim with Intact Public Entities, our insurance agent, for the complete demolition and proper disposal of the existing structures and contents at 25 Old Mill Road, and further that staff be directed to make arrangements to salvage and retain ownership of masonry elements of the stone and brick structures. Just one final comment. I am meeting with the Municipal Heritage Committee tomorrow evening as well, as we have the adjacent report that came along with this that Carl presented, Manager Franke presented back last year. We want to make sure we're following our legislative obligations around this heritage facility, and so we're going to be pursuing that regardless of what happens this evening.
Thank you, Director Clark, and thanks for all your work on this long-standing file that unfortunately was a real tragedy, so thanks so much. Okay, so Councillor Robinson, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question. I just have a bunch of stuff I want to share.
Okay.
I just want to share with you guys some background research that I did following the fire on May 8th. Between May 9th and July 8th, 2023, while I was out in the community, I was asking local people what they wanted to see done with the building since the fire. I made sure I had my day planner with me and I recorded people's responses. And here are the results of my survey. I asked 321 people the same thing. Should we demolish the building, save it, or don't know, don't care? 270 or 84% without hesitation said demolish it. 6 people or 1.8% wanted it saved. 45 people or 14.01% didn't know or didn't care. So that's the background on where I'm coming from. The July 10th, 2023 engineers report, which concluded that the 1868 stone structure could be preserved, in my opinion, was misleading. The engineer's first report to council and following his inspection was, it implied that nothing is impossible if money is not a consideration, and it came through in the report. There's no mention of the cost of hazardous material removal, cost of soil remediation, or the cost of environmental or water protection during the process, as this was outside the scope of their investigation. So your recommendation to advance a claim to demolish all buildings puts all of the liability on the insurance carrier and removes it from the town. So it protects us. And for the past several years, the goal has been to have this property redeveloped while maintaining the heritage buildings. Well, it's no longer an option. And demolition will most likely make the property more attractive to a developer. This has taken far too long to reach this point, and this council has done more than enough due diligence in order for staff to be able to come forward with this recommendation. So my preference is option 1, to demolish the site by advancing the claim with the insurance carrier and that staff negotiate arrangements to salvage and maintain ownership of masonry elements in the 1868 stone building and the 1886 brick structures. By using a process of sympathetic demolition, that would promote the salvage and potential reuse of heritage materials such as the hand-hewn stone and the 1886 bricks. These materials could be reused in a variety of ways, such as a memorial commemorating the building, a feature wall in a future development, or incorporated into the entrances to the new Confederation Bridge crossing. So option 1 is the option I'm going to be supporting tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGuire?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got a few questions to start. I'm wondering, does taking option 1 get rid of all the hazardous materials at the site?
So through the chair, the debris removal is what is related to the facility itself. I won't speak to the underlying hazardous materials underlying contamination, as I don't have the extent of that in front of me. That wasn't part of the scope.
Okay. And we know structurally that there's a water control structure adjacent to the former mill. What's going to happen to stabilize that after demolition?
So I don't, if you could help me on this one, Malcolm. From what I understand, there would be a requirement to keep it in structurally sound. Anything that's removed would need to be supported. So that would have to be, I'd have to go back to the scope of work that our Intact Public Entities had commissioned. I'm not certain of the nuance around that, but the intention is that it is not a part of the structure, but it is adjacent to and connected to the structure. It would need to be remaining in place.
So I guess my question that's outstanding here is, how will that stabilization happen? Is that a structural stabilization or a backfill stabilization?
Stephen Morris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my understanding is that the largest risk is the below the surface parts of these buildings. Each of the buildings, 4 of the 5 at least, have a subsurface layer, a level to it. So part of the scope of work will see a backfill material placed in the cavity that will remain. And the explanation we got is that the weight of the building provides the structural integrity of the wall, especially the wall facing, that's basically a seawall up against the canal. So the recommendation from the engineering consultant that the insurance company hired is to backfill it with a material that would stabilize it and prevent any collapse, either inward or outward. So our understanding is that fill material will also stabilize the remaining structures. But you raise a good point. We will need to confirm that there isn't any requirement for an above grade reinforcing of the existing. So there is There's the old, there's a bulkhead, there's a penstock, there are other elements that are in water that are not contemplated to be affected by this demolition. But your point's a good one. There's still that divide between what remains and what's removed and how do we stabilize it. Our understanding is it's all below surface stabilization, but we will confirm that.
Did you have a follow-up question
Yeah,
to
Madam
that?
Chair, if I,
Yes, go
so
ahead.
my concern is that what we're agreeing to here with the insurance company is to remove the structure. The structure was what was insured, but whatever backfill material is used, if it's a material that cures, there's the potential to have tons and tons of material on top of contamination. And we're effectively building a sarcophagus above the contamination, which to me is, it's been hard enough to get this site redeveloped as it is with everything open. How is this ever going to get redeveloped with meters and tons of concrete on top of it? So I don't think we can, I can't agree to this at the terms that IPE is suggesting here when they're potentially creating an undevelopable brown land in the center of our town adjacent to our UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Thank you.
So good points. And I think the answer to that question lies in the type of development that's going to go on this site. And unfortunately, we don't know what it looks like. As council will know, we had an exclusivity agreement with Samir Construction to redevelop the site. And in the midst of that exclusivity agreement, the fire occurred. The agreement has since expired. Samir Group are interested in extending the agreement for exclusivity because they do still intend to develop the site, or at least put a proposal together. So if that were to proceed, they have designs on using the subsurface area for different uses. So we will need to engage in a dialogue with them to attempt to orchestrate what the fill material could look like. The consultant that IPE hired was very clear that it needs to be a non-expandable type of fill. And so an aggregate won't do that. It puts lateral pressure on whatever void it fills. So we'll need to have a look at how permanent is this material that's going in and how extensive is this material that's going in. So for instance, it may not be necessary to fill the entire cavity, but only fill a portion that would provide structural support for the wall. So that's something we need to explore with the insurance company who hired the consultant to come up with the specifications. So there's still a few things that we need to sort out in terms of details, but really good point. It would be illogical to fill the hole and then remove it someday. There are monitoring wells inside the building. So whatever we do, we would need to maintain access to the monitoring wells. I'm sure that won't be a problem, but it is a consideration. So there are a lot of nuances here that we will unearth, so to speak, once we get direction on which way to go. But what I can say is that in some form or fashion, demolition needs to occur. The question is, do you want to maintain any of those structures or not? And if the answer is no, then that's a different path than if we were to maintain one or more of the structures. So I think tonight's direction allows us to explore in a much more detailed way what the demolition and what the restoration will look like of the site. But you raise a really good point. It's a lot of material there. One of the basement areas or below surface areas is 4.7 meters deep. It's a deep hole, and it's going to take a lot of material to fill it. So we want to make sure it's the right material. If there is an opportunity to build on top of it, we need to know that before it's placed. So there's a lot of engineering nuances here that we need to sort out.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. For me, it came down to the risks. The building, it's not stable. It's been up, as Councillor Robinson said, there's been a lot of due diligence, and rightly so, looking at our options. And the insurance company assumes the risks, pays the costs, and the developer was, whoever it was going to have a challenge with those heritage buildings and what to do with them and how to repurpose some or all of them. They're going to have a challenge whether there's a cover over some of this site. This is a very challenging situation even without the fire. So to mitigate the risk to our corporation and to the town of Smith Falls, I feel we have to move ahead with the demolition and those discussions as they are in the recommendation. I like the idea of saving some of the red brick. There is a lot of stone there. I sent a note around. There's probably like thousands of small stones, and I just not sure about the practicality of salvaging a lot of small stone with mortar on it. For what purpose? So I would, for me, it was around saving the corner coins, the stone sills, the lintels, the date stone that was there, the corner piers on the porch, but I'm less concerned about just rock. So the brick are interesting. So if I was to give that would be my only input into it, and enter into discussions with the insurance company and with the developer at the same time to see what could be, how to make the best of a bad situation. And we don't have all the answers yet, but we have to keep moving ahead, because there is a time limit on this file that we don't want it to fall in. And I do believe it's quite an eyesore right now. I'd like to see it moved ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. This is quite an undertaking, and my personal option is option number one. I totally feel that we can't put the town of Smith Falls at risk. We're doing this on our own. We need others in there, and like CAO just said, as we move forward with this, we will begin to understand what we can use there as a support system. And you know what? All you have to do is open up the lines of communication, and all of a sudden there's somebody else with a different idea that could work really great. So I think the more we get talking, I think the more will come out of this, but definitely we have to move forward with this, and it is demolition. I don't see any other way that we can go. Demolition and option number one.
Thanks, Councillor Quinn. So I have a couple of questions as well. I also choose option one. I share Councillor McGuire's concern about the backfill material, and I think CAO Morris has heard us loud and clear that we want to make sure that we talk to the proponent and the insurance company at the same time. This is putting a lot on your plates, but I have faith in you. Director Clark, if we choose demolition, which it is looking like we'll go down that path, what would the timeline be for work to get started? Do you have a sense of that at all?
So we would have to negotiate, obviously, what that looks like. I think the last conversation we had with the insurance around mobilization, it would take a couple of months to get started. Obviously, we'd like to amp that up and get started as soon as possible. The time frame is also open to negotiation and clarification, but they had spoken between 9 and 12 months to complete the whole process. Yeah.
And I ask not because I'm in a hurry, just out of curiosity. I think we want to do it right instead of fast. And also just an interesting point you made about the stone and the brick, Councillor McKenna. I think that's a good question for the proponent if they continue to want to work with us. But I think we do have storage on Air Care Drive. We have lots of room there, so it may not be a decision we have to make right off of the bat. And so I would vote for option 1. Councillor McGuire, another follow-up question.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I'm wondering, how does it work with our insurance company if we come to a disagreement, say there wasn't a consensus to go forward with demolition because of issues with the way it's being proposed? How does that go to arbitration? How is a disagreement settled before the claim is accepted, or whatever this agreeing to this is completed? And then once this process gets started, the way there seems to be consensus to do it tonight, what happens if they come back to us and say, this is how we're doing it, you've agreed to our demolition terms, you're getting X number of meters of concrete covering the site, and you can deal with it when it's time to redevelop?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So all good questions. I'm not sure of the appeal process. We'll have to have a look at that. But I think in a general sense, we have a limit on the policy of $5.2 million. So the only dispute that could reasonably be launched is if we go beyond the 5.2. So anything within that threshold or within that ceiling is our right as the insurer to expect the work to be done properly. They're aware it's a heritage building. They're aware that there were some designated substances in the building. They're aware that there is groundwater contamination. They're aware that there's an adjacent dam and other infrastructure. So all those complexities are not unknown to the insurer. So I think it's our job to be very specific about the things that we need checked off or attended to before we give them the go-ahead. But at the end of the day, the town of Smiths Falls has a policy for demolition and disposal of that building. So it gets a little complicated if we can't come to terms. The other option would really be option number 2 that Director Clark has provided, and that is that we self-manage the work and seek a payout. And then we can do what we wish with the building. But as we've heard, there's a high degree of risk in doing that. So you raise a good point. I'm confident we can come up with an arrangement that meets our needs. The question is, can we do it within the limit of the policy? My initial thoughts are yes, we can. But clearly after this discussion, we need to go back and make sure that they're fully considering all those adjacent elements to this demolition.
So I think what I'm hearing around the horseshoe is that you have enough to go forward with option 1. I think what I'm also hearing is there's some concerns, and that's logical with a complex process like this. So I think we would just ask that we be kept in the loop, and that if we experience a hiccup, maybe we bring it back to the table. Okay.
Jen?
Yes.
I would just like to emphasize that and just to manage expectations, that as Director Clark indicated, this is not a quick project. This isn't a weekend project. For instance, we need to update the designated substances report that was previously done on the building. We need, someone needs to do an update to the ESA that was done on the property. We need, I think it's called a cultural heritage assessment done. So there's a lot of work to be done before the wrecking crew comes in to start demolishing the building. So just want to make sure we're not expecting this to happen overnight. As Stephanie indicated, it's probably a 9 to 12 month project. There will be a lot of work going on behind the scenes before we actually start removing bricks and stone.
And I think what you heard here tonight is that we'd rather have this done right than fast, but we'll look forward to supporting you through this work.
Thank you.
Okay, drinking water summary from 2023, Manager Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. Tonight I bring forward report 2024-030. The purpose of this report is to satisfy the legislative requirements under Schedule 22 of OREG 170-03, and is to update the owner, mayor, council, members of the public, CIO, and anyone interested in the operation from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. Just to go over at a high level, within the description of the facility, the only change from last year's report that you guys received this year was the introduction of chlorine dioxide, as last year one of the capital projects were to introduce chlorine dioxide at the raw water intake instead of chlorine to reduce our THMs, but to also still take care of the zebra mussels and make sure they didn't grow and close off the intake structure. So that's the only change out of that whole description of the facility from start to finish that is different from previous years. So then I'll move into the non-compliance section. There was no inspection report completed in 2023. As it states in here, the inspector came in and the ministry did our inspection February 1st, 2024. At the time of putting this report together, we had not received the final product from that inspection. We have now, the end of last week, received the product without the rating. So we don't have a rating yet. It takes 2 months to receive the rating after the inspection is completed. But out of that report, the issue of non-compliance deals with the water tower and the leaks from the tower. In the past operations, we have always responded and reported overflows from the tower as spills. We did not know at the time that leaks from the tower are considered spills, even if they don't leave the property and just the water falls on the grass. So it's considered a spill because it is a product from a tower, from a building or a structure that leaks that could affect the environment, the water body, or anything of that nature. So that's one of the items that have come up in our latest inspection. On the bottom of that, the summary of the flows. So as you can see, our flows are quite a bit lower than they have been for the last 5 years. I just wanted to point out that our raw water flow is 19.4% of capacity. So there's still a lot of capacity in our raw water flow from our permit to take water. So the plant should be able to handle any growth within the municipality for the knowing of the upcoming future that we have. And also with the facility itself, there is a different flow rate between the raw water and the treated water flow and the capacities of the facility. So we're at 24.3% of our treatment plant capacity. The reasons that's lower is because the plant was built with possible expansion on site, but not yet completed. So you had the tours. There's one area where there's one spot for a filter to be installed if needed to increase the facility to the 18 million liters per day. Right now it's at 14.1. So that 24% is a 14.1, not the 18, similar to the raw water flows. And the last point is all the sustainability review performance measures. Through all of this, you'll notice even with the drop in the flow rates of a considerable portion, the actual dollar value, so our operational costs only decreased by 2.2% year over year from 2022 to 2023, even though our flows dropped by 500,000 cubic meters that year. That's due to increased costs of living, like all the products, chemicals, everything we use. Those costs have gone up considerably, but we were still able to come in with a better value and only increased our actual dollar per cubic meter as a cost by like 1.1%. So that's a very good number this day and age for increase to the service that we provide to the residents. Percentage of non-revenue water. So you'll see that we're at 33.9%, as discussed in all the quarterly reports. That's the target is 30%. Right? That's what our target is with the age of our infrastructure, different things like that. To go below that, we're going to be increasing the pressure on operations to find smaller areas of concern. So we got to kind of do what we can do best but still make it affordable, because we can go all in and do more, but it's going to cost more. So we're trying to make sure that we're efficient and effective in how we're implementing the service to reduce that non-revenue water. It would be nice to get the unaccounted for down to 10%. So we switch the accounted for and unaccounted for dollars. That's kind of the totals that I'd be looking for to better increase these performance measures and values that we have here. And just one measure of note, you look at the flow, total flow was 1.2 million liters or million cubic meters from the treatment facility last year. That's over 1.2 million liters less than 2019. So we took half the flow out of that water treatment facility by fixing the leaks, becoming more efficient, doing things in the plant and all that kind of thing to make things more affordable and to be able to keep the cost down. And then I'll note the chemical cost. So as you noticed, we used half the amount of chemical, but the cost didn't drop by half. So that's where the dollar value in those figures come into play. I did a quick study or a quick calculation, and if we still used the 211,000 kilograms of our coagulant chemical in 2020, that would have cost us $153,000 at today's price. So there's $90,000, to me, that's $90,000 saved because you took that out of the equation. So through the service sustainability review and operations, we took the $90,000, which could have been spent on chemicals, and we're able to take that out of the equation on our operational costs. And that's the same for hydro, other chemicals. That's where the savings are. We can't show you the exact dollar value of the savings because costs keep increasing, but to be able to do what I just did and kind of look back at what we used to do compared to the cost now gives you what the cost could be or could have been. So other than that, I think the report speaks for itself. Staff have done a great job with the efficiencies and everything in both the treatment plant and distribution. So kudos to them. And if you have any questions on the report, I'm willing to answer.
Thank you, Manager Barlow, and thanks to your staff. This report's stellar. I've been through a lot of audits, and you very rarely see an audit with so few things to approve upon. So please pass on our thanks to your staff. Councillor McGuire?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's another great year at the water treatment plant. It gets better every year. I'm really excited to hear your 10% goal. I know, with this kind of stuff, it's not linear. But the fact that we're aiming towards 10%, I think, is really ambitious. And based on past performance, I am very hopeful and optimistic. I wanted to know what's an adverse water quality incident and what was the 2023 one?
Yeah, sorry. So adverse water quality is when we have a parameter that falls outside of the regulations in the water. The adverse water quality incident this year was a total coliform count on one of our weekly samples. So with that number, it doesn't mean that the water's bad. What we go through is a resampling process to verify the chlorine, do samples again, and verify that the number is zero, because we do over 400 samples a year. To have one come back that might have been a little bit contaminated, it could have been anything, could have been wind and dust when the operator was doing samples. I think this one was actually rain. So if there was a splash or a raindrop or whatever, that would affect the sample. So everything was resampled and verified to be clean and potable.
Great, thanks. I look forward to seeing the ministry report come out soon, I guess.
A couple months and I'll have there.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks again to you and your team. Congratulations. I had a couple of questions on the Intertech audit report. Is that mandatory?
Yes.
Do we invite that?
No, it's mandatory through our drinking water quality management system. So every license cycle, they're not on-site, they're off-site audits that they complete, but there is an on-site audit every 3 years that must be completed for our certification to be able to then apply to make sure that we have all the qualifications and policies in place to renew our license and drinking water works permit.
Okay, and if I may, because you always have to ask a different question, I can't keep on. The corrosion control system, is that for the equipment or for the pipes or for both? Like the equipment in the plant?
No, so this is for the distribution system. So corrosion control is to maintain a pH between 7.5 and 8, as that is the determined value that will less corrode lead or have less leaching of the lead into the water systems. When we do our treatment, so we add the coagulant chemical, and with our dosages at where they are, we actually drop the pH of the water below 7. So we actually use the corrosion control, our caustic soda, to actually bring that pH back and do that pH control for the corrosion to inhibit as much corrosion as possible, because there is lead in the ground in the town of Smith Falls. So we try to use that to make sure that we're leaching the least amount of lead possible through the products that we do supply.
And my final one is either on Water Day, which is coming up, I think, could you create a box that shows the public and me what a cubic meter of water actually looks like? I'm assuming it's meter by meter by meter.
Yeah, the cubic meter is 1,000 liters, or I usually use 4 bathtubs full. Right, you have the bathtub either side on top, kind of close.
Well, the visual is important to people like me to see it, because when we're talking millions of cubic liters, I need some context, and it really, so it'd be a nice prop.
Yeah, I think we can look at something like that for our drinking water week. So whatever we do this year, if we have people, we can build something that they could get a visual.
And finally, thank you for your determination, your whole team's determination on that continuous quality improvement. Just how can we do it better or smarter or cheaper or faster, whatever. It's always there, and it pays off. Like you can see it in the report. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Robinson?
No, thank you. Just comment. Virtually every day, I drive over that bridge next to the water treatment plant, and I can see quite often that the water as it's churning is brown. So what I would like to say is congratulations on delivering to us crystal clear water when I know what color it is when it's going into the plant. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn?
Thank you. Great report. And thank you didn't read it all tonight. That was lovely. I think it's absolutely amazing how you're getting the lost water under control. That is just, I think that's what you call it. The lost
Water loss. Yeah, non-revenue water.
Non-revenue water, thank you. I think that's just amazing. And I think the equipment that you're using is just state of the art. And the staff are well trained and handle that very well. And Drinking Water Week, when is that?
I believe this year it is the 7th to the 11th or 5th
You're
to the 11th.
going to make sure that we know.
Yes.
That's when you're going to do the tour through the facility. Is it that week?
Well, this year I'm looking at producing a virtual tour. So I'm looking at some different things for social media and different things that we can do to engage more people and not have set time. So there's different things we're looking at.
Perfect. Because I think that's really important for people to see. It's just amazing when you go in there and see how water is treated, and like Councillor Robinson said, it's brown, but when we turn our tap on, it's crystal clear, and people don't realize what it takes to do all that. So I think it's wonderful that you can engage many people into that. And I know right now that I'm sure you have issues because the water level, it's not as low right now as it was, but it certainly was low. I know at my place, I could have walked around my dock. So when I can do that, the water coming down through is definitely low, and you're bringing in a lot of sludge or whatever it's called. So you're treating it very well. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your report.
Okay.
Okay, so we have no committee, board, or external organization updates. We do have one. Thank you.
If I could, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
please.
Couple. The Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, I mentioned I'm your representative on the Lanark County Smith Falls Safety Plan. I just wanted to, it's coming along well. We'll have a new plan that's done every 4 years, and we're updating it. But there was, it's in regulation that municipality has to have one. When we get it and approved, we have to post it. But there's also something new that I don't know if it's new or I just learned about it. So it says a municipal council that has adopted the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan shall take any actions that the plan requires it to take, and shall encourage and assist other entities to promote the plan. But then it goes on, it says, any plan that has been adopted in accordance with the regulations that's not the right one. It's essentially saying that you have an obligation not just to create the plan, but you have to implement it, monitor it, evaluate it. So it doesn't end with the plan, and so we have to be careful what we put in there for recommendations to county and Smiths Falls, because once you agree to do it, you have to. There's a cost, not necessarily in dollars, but in time. So we have to implement it, monitor it, and evaluate it.
So Councillor McKenna, if I may, will we see a draft of that before the county and you
Yes.
approve it? Okay.
Yes, right now they've gathered all of the potential elements that could be in the safety plan, and it's under categories like health and transport. It's all there, and now we have to get it narrowed down. It's too broad. So it's still months away.
You'll remind us of these rules.
I will.
We draft.
And if I could, Lanark County Social Services is having a virtual workshop, public education session on understanding homelessness. And it's a virtual workshop. It's free. You don't have to register. You just go online, and on the night of or the day of, there's 2 dates, March 21st for 1 hour, 7 to 8, and April 2nd, 10 to 11. A lot of us are talking about homelessness and the issue, and we could, without knowing a lot about it. And this is an information session or an education session for the public. So I hope that we can post that. And I know that council received the flyer, but I want the public to sign in as well. And finally, the Smiths Falls for All Committee, which Mayor Panko and I both sit on, met last week. And we're going to organize what we're calling a newcomers event. So there's a lot of people that have moved to Smiths Falls, and then there's from other towns in Canada. And then there's a lot of people that have moved to Smiths Falls from all across the world. And we're talking about maybe a newcomer event picnic in our town square when the nicer weather comes, details to follow. But just to let you know that we're certainly thrilled to have so many people move to Smiths Falls from all walks of life. And we're finding some way to welcome them and make them feel at home and get this, make them aware of all of the services and wonderful events that we have. And that's it.
Thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? No? Okay. Any correspondence items? Nothing? Okay. No notice of motions, so I have a motion to adjourn by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor McGuire, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 6:14 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Oh, all in favor? Almost didn't finish. Thank you.
We wouldn't have been able to leave if you hadn't.
All right, yeah.
Sitting here.